Hi, in this video, I'm going to share our motion design process when we take a project. We've been getting questions about what our motion design process looks like, how long does it take, and that's what exactly we're going to do today. Just a little bit of disclaimer. I'm not saying that this is the process for every studio. I think every studio have their own unique process. But despite the differences, I think each of our processes are very similar. So this is our process. Projects are different, and we have different projects. We have different process for different kinds of projects. For example, there are projects that require us to write a script. There are projects that the client would provide us a script. There are also projects that the design is already ready and we just need to animate it. And each of those processes slightly differ. Just for simplicity, let's just assume that we do everything. We do the concept, we do the script, we do animation and design. And just for simplicity, let's just say the client would require an explainer video for a product. So the first step that we take is we go into a discovery session with the client. So it's a Zoom call about 1 to 2 hours, and basically it's just me and the client, or a team, the team of the client. And basically what I'm trying to figure out is why they need the video, what's the purpose of the video. For example, is it for educating? Is it educating for the overview of the company, what the company is about, or is it about a specific feature? Another thing also that I try to consider is, who is this for? Is the one who's going to watch this, is that person warm towards the company? Is that person ready to buy? Is that what this video is for? Is it for selling, or is it just for explaining or educating? Those are the things that I try to figure out in the discovery session. And once that is done, the next phase is the research phase. So me and the team, we're going to meet and to brainstorm what I have figured out with the client, and we go into a research phase. And we could divide this into two parts. The first part is to study the project a bit further, and the second part is looking for inspiration. So studying the product further, what we're looking at here, or depending on the budget, we also interview other key stakeholders, for example, the sales department. So that's going to be a different Zoom call, or we're going to interview customers of the client and try to see what their pain point is. And another thing that we do during this research phase is we try and ask for as much material as we can from the client. For example, do they have a brand guidelines that we could study? Do they have a product manual? Or if we're doing an explainer video for a product or a platform, we're most likely going to ask for a dummy account for their online platform, so that we could try it out. That's what happens in the studying phase. We're basically trying to study the product a bit further so that we could explain it. The other part of the research phase is looking for inspiration. So usually it's the lead designer who does this, who would go to Pinterest and to pin for inspiration. And the most obvious thing to pin is, for example, in an explainer video, the most obvious is to look for other explainer videos for inspiration. But it's not only limited to that. You could also look for inspiration like other illustrations, posters, movies, films, series, layout in magazines, the composition in films. Actually, you could get inspiration from anything. And then we compile those inspiration and place them in a mood board. And once that is done, usually the whole research phase, the studying the product and looking for inspiration, would take about a week. And once that is done, me and the team were going to brainstorm on the concept, on the actual concept, on the approach. So now we are going into the concept phase. What does the concept document include? So it also depends on the budget. Sometimes we offer, 3 different concept approaches, sometimes only 2, sometimes only 1. Let's just assume that we are making 3 different approaches. So what does the concept document include? It would include the script, a sample script. So it's not an actual script, it's more like the script structure. Like, for example, in the intro, we're going to explain this topic. And then in the next section, we're going to explain the product or the solution. So it's just basically just the structure of how we present information or how we explain it, more like an outline. Another thing that the concept document would include is the sample storyboard. It's not the whole storyboard. It would just contain 3 frames. Because there are also a lot of ways to think about in terms of how we present this visually. Is it metaphorical? Is it literal? Are we using characters or are we using shapes? Will there be a voiceover, or everything is done via text or typography? So that's why we present 3 different approaches. And the last thing that the concept document would include is the design. You can think of it like a concept art that would later on dictate what the actual look and feel of the video would look like. So the design would include the color palette, maybe a sample illustration, a sample character illustration, or if the concept is typography heavy, there's going to be fonts and some typography in there. Once that is done and the concept document is sent to the client and the client has chosen an approach, the next step for us is to actually write the script. Personally, I like a project better if we are the one to do the script. The reason being is that I have full control of the flow. There are times that the client would hire someone else to write the script, and it's usually well written. But there's a problem with that. The problem is the one who has written the script is not an animator and hasn't thought about how to present the information visually. And have you tried that when you try to animate a project and you have this part and the voiceover is just way too long and it's just one concept? It's just like they're just trying to get one concept across and it's so long. And if I'm the one who's going to write the script, if the concept is just not that big of a concept to express visually, I'm gonna make that segment a bit shorter. And that's what I like if we are the one who writes the script, is we have full control of the flow and how we present the information. But so let's just say we're the one who writes the script. But we have also a problem. One problem is that we're not really from the US. We're based in the Philippines. I'm a Filipino. And while my English is good enough, I could speak in a coherent thought. I could write in a coherent thought. But what I write could have some grammar errors. And another thing to consider is it's not localized in whatever market the client wants to target. So for example, in English, my choice of words in the English language is different from the choice of words that someone from the UK would use or someone from US. And that's the reason why whenever we write the script, we would also hire a copywriter to proofread our script and to localize it to to whatever the market the client is trying to target. So once the script is approved, the next step is to actually now to create the storyboard. Remember, in the concept document, we have presented 3. So whatever the client chooses as an approach, we're going to apply that to the rest of the video, to the rest of the script. So we have to consider, did they choose the one that is metaphorical or literal? Should we have actual backgrounds or just minimal? Now, those are the things that you consider when doing the storyboard. And we have different also approaches that we have tried in the past. Is it better if only one artist is going to do the storyboard, or is it more efficient if there are 3 or more people to be working on the storyboard? Based from my experience, it would be better if only one person is going to do the storyboard. The reason is that the concept is more coherent that way. Imagine if there are 5 different artists trying to do the same storyboard, and you just try to piece them all together. Sometimes it works, but most of the time, the ideas aren't just coherent. So what we do is, because all of us have ideas in the team, what we do is, before the storyboard artist is going to do the storyboard, we're going to brainstorm. We're going to discuss, and everyone's going to share their ideas. So the storyboard artist would be in that room and would take inspiration from all of us. And now when he or she is actually going to do the storyboard, our ideas are already in there, but it's now going to be more coherent according to his or her plan or her approach. And once the storyboard is done, the next thing that we're going to do is to do the style frame. So whatever design approach the client has chosen, that's what we're going to apply to the rest of the frames in the storyboard. And how we approach that is, the one who does the style frames is usually 2 artists or more. And there are 2 ways that you could approach it if you have a team on this. The first one is to divide the task by frames. So for example, frames 1 to 10 would be given to person A. Frames 11 to 20 would be done by person B. So that's one approach. Another approach is to divide the task based on the artist's specialty. So for example, one person specializes in character illustrations, so that person would do all the characters of all frames. If one person specializes in background, then he or she would do the background for all the frames. So that's what we do. Sometimes we use approach 1, sometimes we do approach 2. And from my experience, approach 2 would work better than approach 1. And once that is done, once the style frames are done, and also we also upload our style frames and storyboard on an online platform called boards.com. I'm going to link it in the description. So that's what we're going to send to our client. And once that is approved, the next step is to actually do the animation. And before we go full blast in the animation production, we first send an animation test. It's usually just about 5 seconds. And the last thing that you want is you've made about 30 seconds worth of animation only to find out that the client doesn't like it. So we send first an animation test. And once we are on the same page with the client, then we would go full blast into the animation production. And how we divide the task in animation is we base it on the animator's specialty. For example, my specialty is character animation. So I do all of the character animations in the project. So if you've seen some of our works, some of our client works, and you've seen character animation, that is most likely my work. But not all of them, most of them are my work. So that's what we do. We first look at the storyboard, and then we identify which are character animation work, which are motion graphics work. So We also have another animator who specializes in typography animation. So if the video has typography animation, that person would do that. And we also have someone who specializes on motion graphics. So if the video is more or less motion graphics work, then that is given to that person. And also we assign one person to handle the compiling of all of these things, to compile the character animation, the character parts, and the motion graphics, and then going to compile them. And that person is also going to be responsible for the transitions. Is it going to be just a cut, or is the transition going to morph? So that person would be responsible for that. And once that is done, the next step is to do the sound design. Sometimes we outsource the sound design to a third party. Sometimes we do it in-house. We have also an amazing sound designer on staff. But sometimes we are, because that person, our sound designer, is also an animator. And if we're so busy with animation, we just outsource the sound design to a third party. And once that is done, we send it to the client, and then we hope that the client likes it and that it's effective and that it would solve their problem, or bring them customers. That's the important part of why our services was needed. And I think that's it. I hope you learned something from our process. And if you're running or planning to run your own motion design studio, I hope this video helped. We also have a Skillshare class if you want to improve your frame-by-frame animation, which I would also link in the description below. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. I believe it's going to help with the algorithm. And please subscribe. And I think that's it. Thanks for watching, and see you around.